Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC 243, a title bout between Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. We've got two free plays that we're going to be talking about. If you like UFC gambling, UFC advice, definitely subscribe. Always encourage everybody to hit the like button if you enjoy this content, as well as get involved in the conversation down below. After every video, I go down there and continue the conversation. We are on a nice run here. We've really been doing well this part of the year, really following through on some strong plays. We're coming off a nice 2-0 night on last weekend, including Jared Canninoier at plus 210. So looking forward to keep that going. As we say, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Even when we have some nice plays, there's always another event on the horizon, and that is this one that's coming up. A great card, a fun card, and some really nice betting opportunities. Looking forward to talking about them, so we will talk about them now. We will get into our first free play. Our main free play of the evening is on the main event between Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Now, this is a fun fight, like I'm saying. I mean, stylistically, it's a great matchup, and the more I looked into it, the more I was really liking this play. I'll definitely let you guys know at the end of this. I want to definitely hear from you guys on if you're agreeing or disagreeing on my play. So, we're first going to talk about the current champion, Robert the Reaper Whittaker. Now, this one right now, you've got current lines are minus 125 to Israel Adesanya is a plus 116. Now, I've been seeing it all over the place, really. I've been seeing it at even money. I've been seeing Israel at minus 106, and I've seen a lot of things moving around, so definitely check your books. Find out the best price that you can get depending on who you are going to be betting. But Robert Whittaker is 20-4. Israel Adesanya is 17-0. Now, like I always say, I like to go over the last three fights. And here I'm going to kind of go over it pretty quickly because there's a lot more I want to talk about stylistically with these two matching up. I think there's a lot more to break down than actually the last few fights that they had. So, going over the last three fights. 3 fights ago, it was against Jacaré versus Robert Whittaker. Again, this is a wrestler. Jacaré is a scary human being when he gets you on the ground. He's able to latch you up. And Whittaker looked great. He was able to defend those takedowns, keep it standing. Jacaré definitely does not have the striking credentials on the ground. He may be one of the more vicious guys within the UFC. And Whittaker was able to pick him apart. Took some big shots in that first round, and then that second round, he was able to really put it on him, and in the defensive wrestling that Whittaker possesses is really fantastic, and there wasn't much that Jacaré could really do, so he was able to put away Jacaré in that second round by TKO. Impressive victory for a guy that many people did not want to fight at that time. And then the last 2 fights that Whittaker had was against Yoel Romero. Now, Yoel is one heck of a fighter, another scary individual, a freak of nature when you take a look at him as a specimen. I mean, what just an athlete overall. And again, another guy that at the time people just didn't want to fight. They just were scared of his power, the wrestling, how strong he is. And you've got to give credit to Whittaker when he went out there 2 straight fights and had 2 absolute wars against Romero. And Romero, close fights. That first fight, I thought that really Whittaker, same thing, did his thing, great counter wrestling, great defensive wrestling, able to keep it standing, and able to really outstrike Romero over the 5 rounds. It was a decision victory for Whittaker, and then they had to run it back, and that was where Romero missed weight by a little bit, but they still had the matchup, and it was another heck of a fight, an absolute war between these two. And this was a fight here where I actually saw that I believe that Romero actually won the fight very close. I mean, it was a split decision win for Whittaker. You can definitely make an argument for either side there. You've really got 2 guys that put it all on the line. Big shots from both. I thought that 5th round was a critical round, and that was a round that I actually gave it to Romero, and that, for me, it was a 3-2 for Romero. But again, I've seen a lot worse judging before in my life, and that was just a war. So you give it to the champ, and also Romero did miss weight, so it was a kind of a mix-up of a lot of issues, really. But you give it to Whittaker, who does defend his title. Now talk about Israel Adesanya. 3 fights ago, he fought Derek Brunson. This was a wrestler, we know how Derek Brunson is. It's a wrestler. He wants to come forward a little bit, and this was just a dominating performance. There was a lot of bad blood between these two, both talking about knocking each other out, both saying it was going to be easy money for each of them, and it was extremely easy money for the style bender as he went out there and was able to just knock him out in that first round, picked him apart. Brunson just didn't have any answers at all throughout that fight. It was a very easy victory for Israel Adesanya. He goes out there and gets the knockout victory. And 2 fights ago, he fought Anderson Silva. This to me was a little bit more of a glorified, sparring match. It was a little bit of a pillow fight between these two. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to these two guys, but it's also the fact that they really didn't feel like they were pouring it on, neither of them. There was definitely, obviously, they're out there, they're fighting, they're landing big shots, but it was a lot of it, a little bit more was dancing, and no one really opened up and really unloaded their arsenal when there were spots where maybe they could have. Obviously, they're both elite boxers, elite kickboxers, so maybe there's some of that going to that as well, but I think it was a lot to do with respect for one another. I didn't really think that there was much to take away from that fight. It was a nice showing for Adesanya to go out there. He gets the easy decision victory, but Silva is Silva at this point. He's not what he used to be, so you give the victory to Adesanya to go out there, and he gets the unanimous decision victory. Now, a fight that I think is very interesting was the fight against Kelvin Gastelum. And this is a fight I think you can take some things away. We're going to get into it a little bit more. I guess I want to kind of run through these, get into a little bit more, but, Gastelum went out there. It was a tough fight. They they really battled it out. It was just an absolute war, and you've got a guy in Gastelum, who is already small for the division, and he's giving up a lot of reach, a lot of height, and he went out there, and I thought he did an excellent job really putting the pressure on Adesanya. Adesanya, they talk about his takedown defense, they talk about his ground game, that it may not be that good, but, he went out there and he was trying to get inside on that range. He landed some big shots. It was very close when he came down to statistics. It was actually very close, but 4 knockdowns for Adesanya where he landed and dropped Kelvin, I think, really was the part of this fight that really pushed it a lot more towards Adesanya in this fight. He goes out there, gets the decision victory, and for me, I had it the same way too, but there was a lot to take away from that fight, and let's get into really the stylistic matchup between these two. Now, take a look at Robert Whittaker. Now, Whittaker, we were just talking about defensive wrestling, really excellent, and he's got that great left hook, and he's great where he's able to really hide it behind a jab. He'll throw a jab and work that left hook. He's good at doing it, really without even, I guess he disguises it very well, where you don't really see a lot of movement. He's not looking to really drive it through, but he's able to really, from a standing position, and Israel does this as well too, very good at it, where you just don't really see it coming. And I think that's something that is very hard for a lot of guys to really pick up where his strikes are coming from, and also the fact that you've got Whittaker, who is a fast starter. Now, he comes out there and he's looking to lay it on you early and often and really pressure you. And that, I think, helps a lot that Israel went out there and he just fought Kelvin Gastelum, who is very, to that style, very similar in many ways to that style where he's got a lot of power, he wants to push forward, and that's something I think you take away more towards Adesanya, where he just fought a guy of that caliber, elite guy. I think very highly of Kelvin Gastelum, although again, he gives up a lot of the physical attributes, still has the power, still has the push forward, still has the strength, and a lot of the knockout power. And I also like with Whittaker is that his volume's high. He comes out there and he's, not only is pressing forward, but he's really laying out a lot of volume. And that's something when you're going against Israel that I think that he has to do. If he wants to win this fight, he has to go out there, throw big volume, not allow Israel to really work his range and be from the outside. I think he needs to get inside. I'm obviously not telling you something you don't know because that's obviously a path to victory, but that's something absolutely that Whittaker needs to do. And then you look at Israel here. Now, Israel Adesanya, overall, his kickboxing is the elite top-level pedigree, and he's very good at using his range. And I think that, again, is something he has to use within this fight. And the way that he's very able and capable, very smoothly moves from orthodox to southpaw and able to work strikes when he's switching and really... It's, again, very good at disguising where his shots are coming from. The front kick, a side kick, a leg kick, throwing, his straight shots are really great. And I always like to go back to someone like Amanda Nunes. And Amanda Nunes, she is excellent at really using her range. Not only does she have a nice range and overall with her reach, but she really has power at the end of her punch. She doesn't really force it where it's inside. She's able to really be a full length of her arm and land those big shots. She doesn't need to be inside and throw those big hooks, and that's the way, and kind of allows the fighter to be inside. Israel does that. Israel's excellent at really using his range, being on the outside, and being very versatile with his striking, mixing it up a lot. That's going to be very important in this fight. Now, I think the big thing that comes out for me here is, when we were just talking about, is who they just fought. Now, you go back to one thing that Israel has been very active. He's fought top-level guys, all different mixes of guys. And I think Kelvin being just actually going out there and training for him, I think is really big. We've got someone like Robert Whittaker, who's been out. He's been out for 16 months. He has not fought. He's fought some tough fighters, but over the last 4 fighters that he fought, they were all very similar and nothing to do with the way that Israel fights, an elite level kickboxer. You've got guys that want to take you down, and you go over the last 4, and you've got, and he beat them. You got to put that out there. He beat them, but he fought Derek Brunson, more of a wrestler with some striking, or really a wrestler with limited striking. You've got Jacare, elite ground game, limited striking. You've got Yoel. Yes, he has power. Yes, he's, but he is not any striking to the caliber of Israel Adesanya. He fought him twice. And again, these are guys where when they go out there and they land a big shot on Whittaker, they're looking for the takedown. And that's kind of been something that obviously that Whittaker has to have been working on for an extremely long time over the people that he has fought. I think it's going to be very difficult for Whittaker to really change up that game plan, and how good and the timing that Israel has, I think, is going to be a very, very troublesome spot for Whittaker. I think that he's not going to be able to beat from the outside. I think he's going to look to come inside. I think Israel's going to be very patient in those early rounds. I like what I saw even in the 5th round when he fought Kelvin. That was an absolute war. People were talking about that was, nominee of like fight of the year and all these. It was an absolute war, and even in that 5th round, you saw Israel dig deep, and a lot of people say, is he, too much of a goofball and too much of a cocky guy, you really saw him dig deep, and he was in some bad spots in that 3rd, 4th round. Kelvin was landing some big shots, and he pushed forward and really put it on Kelvin in that 5th round, and that's something where you've seen Whittaker slowly, not that it's his cardio is some big issue, but you've seen him slow down, and he's been through some absolute wars over his career. I think that Israel here in this spot, plus money, I think a guy like him at this point really elevating. I think he is hitting his stride. You've seen Whittaker, who has had some health issues, and again, that's not an end-all be-all. We've seen Max Holloway come back from some scary health issues, and he came back, and he looks back to being one of the best fighters in the world. But just piling all of that stuff on, inactivity for Whittaker, the range and the style overall for Israel, I think is a bad matchup for Whittaker. Now, we've got the current lines at, again, you can get it all over the place. I actually placed my bet at plus 116. I know that line has dramatically moved down where it's almost a pick'em now, but I love those odds. I love any plus odds you can get. I mean, even I saw yesterday it was plus 105, plus 110. Plus 105, plus 110. So you're seeing, those odds, but I still think here, I like Israel. I think he goes out there. I think a decision victory is something that's probably going to be happening. And for me, on a prop bet here, and I've sprinkled it in. I don't like to make a huge bet on prop bets, but I love that Israel winning by points, by decision, is a plus 500. So I like the fact that, you don't see Israel going out there and lighting people up and finishing them too much. But I think this is a fight where both these guys are tough. None of this fight is not going to the ground. I believe that Israel goes out there, gets a decision victory. My play is going to be betting Israel Adesanya as a straight bet, taking him, but I'm sprinkling in a definite on the points. Plus 500 is what I'm seeing today, which I think is fantastic odds. Even the fight going to a decision was, I think, a plus 150. So if I like Israel, I think, it's going to go to a decision, but my play is going to be Israel Adesanya to defeat Robert Whittaker in the main event with a little sprinkle of Israel by decision plus 500. Now we're going to get into our other free play. Our other free play is on Iaquinta versus Dan Hooker. Now, we're going to get into it here. You've got current odds. Now again, they've moved around a lot. You've got Dan Hooker as the favorite. It was a pick'em almost. It moved up to the market moved it to a minus 165. You've got Iaquinta, who's a plus 135. So getting into it here, and again, I'm not going to dive into this one too much, but if you're taking a look at Iaquinta, what he did against Khabib, he got big praise over that. There was a lot of praise at what he did against Khabib. And a lot of me here talks about, and I've talked about a couple times here, we talk about fights with Khabib, is, everyone really gave him the praise there. It was a dominant performance for Khabib. It was just almost a pat on the back for Al fighting him, on a day's notice, where almost Khabib was standing and striking for about 3 rounds of that, and his corner saying, take him down, take him down, take him down. And that first and second round, it was a dominant, and then he stood and struck with Al, which kind of made it go further, which I kind of also think that it was rounds that Khabib was looking to get. But anyway, that is, regardless, Khabib does get that victory. But I thought it was interesting. It was a great fight for him against Kevin Lee, where he fought Kevin Lee. He looked good. Kevin Lee was looking for those takedowns, outstruck him completely, looked great overall. He goes out there, Al, and gets that decision victory as well. And then against Donald Cerrone, which is a fight I think you could take a lot away from that's coming up against this fight against Dan Hooker. Stylistically, I kind of put Hooker and Cerrone very similar together, where just the way that they fight, the way that they strike, they're kickboxing, they're very creative. They use a lot of mixing it up with leg kicks and striking up top. And I like the way that overall Cerrone's game plan was in that fight, where he actually pushed forward a lot. He actually was able to keep himself at a nice distance, but find opportunities to lunge in there and land some big shots. He landed a couple nice front kicks, dropped Iaquinta a few times in that fight. Didn't look to really jump on him, of course, but that is a definite path to victory, because you've seen Iaquinta, he doesn't have the greatest entry point when he's looking to fight a guy that has a little bit more range to him or has a lot more kicks from the outside. You've seen him struggle, and in this spot here, Cerrone was able to really landslide victory, overall easy win for Donald Cerrone. On the other side, you've got Hooker. Hooker fought Gilbert Burns. I am very high on Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns we just cashed in last week on, and he went out there and knocked Gilbert Burns out in the first round, which was extremely impressive for me. I thought it was a really great showing. The fight also, the next one was against Edson Barboza. We fought Barboza. This was a fight here, it was an absolute battle. It was a kickboxing battle. It showed the toughness, really, of Hooker. He went out there and he stood and tried to bang with one of the best kickboxers in the UFC. Did not win on something like that, but you're not going to see that kind of striking against Iaquinta. It's going to be more it's going to be the boxing of Al you're going to be seeing. So he just fought a very tough fighter in Edson Barboza, and to prepare for him and to see that kind of striking, yes, he lost, and he did get knocked out late in that fight, but I think it's, again, a very good experience for Hooker. And then just recently, he knocked out the glass jaw of James Vick. James Vick, good boxing overall, but, this guy just, you tap his chin, he goes down. Hooker does have power, but it was nothing. It was a one-sided knockout victory for Dan Hooker. Now, breaking all of that down here, the thing, again, I'm going back to is that Cerrone fight. I really like the way that Hooker mixes it up. He does very well mixing it up, and a lot of people are also saying, too, hey, is Al going to look for the takedowns? That's just not his thing. Could he do it? Of course, it's a possibility, but Hooker has a great guard, and he is not scared to even be in there. He's crafty with it. He looks for submissions. He's good at really reversing it, so it's not really something that I think Al would look to do unless it's really out of desperation. But I like, again, the versatile combination that you're going to be getting from Hooker, and also his output. The output's going to be very big also, as well, as you're going to have someone like Al who's not going to have the reach. And I think that that's extremely important as well, as you've got Hooker who's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, around 3.5 inches on the height, and about 3 inches advantage on the legs. So overall, it's a tough matchup for him, and you don't really see that Al really comes forward. He's very hittable. He's extremely hittable, and you've seen it even against somebody like Kevin Lee, who landed a lot of shots. Although he looked good, he landed a lot of shots. His defensive striking is very limited. For somebody like Hooker, I think that he goes out there. I think it's a one-sided victory for Hooker. I'm not sure on the knockout here in this one, but I think it's going to be Dan Hooker going out there, getting this victory. I really like what I see overall. And again, I think it's going to be very similar to the fight with Donald Cerrone. I think Donald Cerrone went out there, had the one-sided victory, a decision, and that kind of thing. I think also Dan Hooker does that as well. So those are my plays. It will be Dan Hooker to defeat Iaquinta, depending what odds you're getting at it as well, but the odds have shifted, but I still like Dan Hooker to go out there and get this victory. And those are my two plays for UFC 243. We've got Israel Adesanya at plus 116, and we've got Dan Hooker. I ended up getting it at minus 135, and actually wish I kind of bet it a little bit earlier because the line was a little bit further down, but we got Dan Hooker as well. So those are my two free plays. We'll have our bet review show out on Sunday. Definitely let me know what you guys have, what you guys are betting. Always appreciate hitting the like button and all those that are contributing to the show and to this content. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show, and I'll see you Sunday at the bet review.